With the coronavirus, a lot of people are scared to go out due to limited gatherings of 250, but we all have to still go to the grocery store. What are some precautions that you would suggest when people are going out to get their groceries?
Well, a few things. First of all, you might go on off hours if you can. Secondly, get 2 or 3 weeks worth of groceries at a time so it can decrease the number of times you have to go back to the grocery store. And it also will allow for the stores to be restocked between people coming in. In terms of what people should be taking home, they should obviously be getting canned goods and paper products and things like that, but also get 2 weeks, make sure you have about 2 weeks on hand of your prescription medications and any other over-the-counter medications that you take.
Would you suggest not going for fresh products like apples where you have to touch them and
So those are kind of somewhat of a form of fomites, which are surfaces that people are worried about viruses being stuck on. In actuality, although they can last for a few hours, the virus can last for a few hours on certain things, it starts degrading just about immediately. And so it's thought that unless you see someone sneezing on a tomato, as long as you take it home and wash it, like everybody was told to do when they were a little kid, it should be okay.
good to know? And then also, do you think grocery stores will end up being shut down?
I don't think grocery stores will be shut down for the simple reason that it's pretty essential to use, and not everybody can get food by the mail.
And is there anything else when it comes to pharmacies also getting your medicine?
Yeah, so a couple things. First of all, you should have on hand 2 or 3 weeks of your prescription medications in case there's sort of more of a nationwide quarantine. Secondly, have over-the-counter medications as well. And third, if you can, order your medications by mail. Not everybody can do that, but a lot of people can. For example, Kaiser sends medications by mail routinely. And so that's a very simple way of getting your medications and keeping them stocked.
And would you prefer or suggest a self-checkout over going to the cashier?
Very good question. So there's probably reasons to do both. There are reasons that favor both. The bottom line is, whichever you do, after you're done, wash your hands. Use the hand sanitizer that's at all grocery stores now. And when you get home, wash your hands.
Would you suggest taking your children to the grocery store at this time, or should you just go individually as an adult?
Although kids actually have been shown to have a much more benign or mild symptoms of this when they get infected, I would probably, just to decrease the number of people in the store, go with yourself.
And speaking of children, when it comes to schools closing down, what are some of the things that parents need to know and should be doing to keep their kids safe?
So one of the very most important things is that the school closures will make absolutely no difference whatsoever unless kids actually are kept home or socially distanced. So for example, the park that we're in here is a perfectly good place for kids to come, not to congregate in large groups, but like with a parent or a sibling to come play and be, more there, because it allows you to be at least 6 feet away from anybody else. So there's appropriate social distancing. On the other hand, the place not to go is like to the coffee shop with 30 other of your fellow teenagers who have been let out of school.
And I know a lot of parents are saying, well, you take care of the kids on this day, and then they're putting all their kids in one place again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there are arguments on both sides. There's no perfect solution. The other thing that we're concerned about is kids whose parents both have to work and they are taken care of by a grandparent, which is obviously one of the high-risk groups, who are in the high-risk groups. So we're concerned about that as well. And that's why we want to make sure that the kids, if they're out of school, and for the purpose of not spreading the disease, actually not go to places and mass congregate.
recently we were told by a doctor that the coronavirus test produced false negatives. Is there any truth to that, and how reliable is the coronavirus test?
The coronavirus test is quite reliable now. It was originally, a few weeks ago, not so reliable, and they actually had to pull back defective virus testing kits to the CDC. As far as I know, the tests are reliable, and although we don't have enough still here, that the reliability is not as big an issue.
What has changed? What has made them so reliant now?
They had a defective reagent. I mean, the material that they had in the virus kits originally was giving inconclusive results. But but to be clear, that has changed. We're now quite confident of our viral testing. The issue is, however, that we still need to get more of it.
And speaking of needing more, correct me if I'm wrong, there was only about 9 in the county, is that correct? Or
No, so we can do, in each test run, you can do two swabs per person. So we have about 50 to 60 test spaces, if you will, at our health department public health lab, which can serve about 25 to 30, half that many, 25 to 30 people a day. So those are reserved strictly for healthcare workers who've been exposed to someone who tested positive, so we can find out quickly if they're positive, so that they can both just keep the healthcare worker capacity up, as well as we don't want them spreading it to someone else. And secondly, senior citizens or those with underlying chronic conditions who have serious symptoms. Those are the two groups that we prioritize for our tests, and we're able to handle them to a large extent. But for everybody else who wants to go get tested and they're worried well or whatever, they'll be able to get tested through LabCorp and Quest, which are commercial labs, starting apparently this past week a little bit, and it'll grow in terms of availability. But it's important to point out that actually, unless you are sick and encouraged to go for testing by your doctor, we don't recommend going out if you have mild symptoms, because most people who have this virus will have mild symptoms only, or no symptoms whatsoever. 80% of people will have no or mild symptoms. And so what we don't want people doing is going out who have a mild cough or fever, who would be able to take care of themselves at home, and go out to a doctor's office or whatever, get tested and get more people infected.
Is it true that if you have mild symptoms and you take maybe Tylenol or orange juice, vitamins, you can kind of get rid of it yourself?
Yes, absolutely. That's the vast majority of cases. That's correct.
A lot of people could have had the coronavirus and kind of cured it.
There's no question. There's absolutely no question that we've had moderate spread of the disease in Sacramento County. We have about 25 cases total. But because we've only tested a couple hundred people, we have missed large numbers of people who would otherwise have tested positive but had mild or no symptoms and didn't go in to get tested. It's not that we necessarily want them to go get tested, but there's absolutely no question that far more people have had the virus in the last 2 weeks than are currently counted, and the vast majority of them probably were mildly symptomatic and got cured on their own.
You really can't run from or hide from it like the cold or the flu,
Yes.
You're exposed.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Right. And what will the
Okay, what time is it?
10:33.
Okay, I have 3 more minutes.
Okay.
I got to go to the meeting.
What will the county's next steps be if it continues to rise with cases? What will the next steps be?
So what we're doing is a mitigation strategy, which is, although we quarantine some, like healthcare workers who've been exposed to a case, until that healthcare worker gets tested and tests negative, we keep them out of contact with patients. But aside from cases like that, instead of containment where you're quarantining people who might have been exposed to someone, we're now beyond that, and so we're actually mitigating. We're now using a mitigation strategy, which is trying to mitigate or reduce the risk to those who are most serious risk for the dangerous consequences of the virus, and those are overwhelmingly seniors, 60, 65 and older, or those with chronic underlying conditions. So all of our efforts are being focused on trying to keep them from being exposed. That means keeping kids home when they're sick from school. It means adults keeping home when they're sick from work. It means putting restrictions on visitors to senior citizen homes. It means recommending strongly that seniors don't go to the malls, and if they're going to go to the grocery store, go off hours if they can't get family members to go buy food for them. Again, the whole goal here is to try and restrict the exposure to seniors.
How similar is this to the swine flu in 08?
So in some ways it's very similar to the swine flu in 08, 09, in that it's respiratory, It spread the same way. There was originally no medication or no immunization, although the immunization came around more quickly with the swine flu than this virus is going to be. They're the same recommendations of washing your hands regularly, self-distancing, all that sort of thing. It's really quite similar, except that a vaccination was made more rapidly. But the H1N1 is now part of the constellation of infectious diseases that travels around the world on a seasonal basis, and I'm guessing that this will be similar to that.
Do you believe we'll survive this?
We will survive this without question.